The trial for the former Albuquerque police sergeant charged with vehicular homicide is set to continue today. Matt has been following this. He's here to tell us what went on during the first day of trial. Matt?
Well, Elizabeth, yesterday, former APD Police Sergeant Adam Casals heard from the young lady who survived the crash that he caused as she had to relive the night her sister was killed.
I remember being in pain. I was really confused. I didn't even know what had happened in the accident.
Lindsay Browder there testified she does not remember much of the crash, but does remember waking up in the hospital and staff telling her that her sister Ashley had died. Casals broadsided the Browder's SUV back in February of 2013 after he ran a red light on Paseo del Norte. He was off duty at the time, but says he was chasing a suspected drunk driver. Prosecutors say there was never any evidence that drunk driver existed, and they say Casals was reckless and speeding.
The defendant said he was going about the speed, which is what is going to come out in the crash reconstruction, which at point of impact, it was around 62 miles per hour. You're going to hear that evidence. The speed limit in that area is 45.
The evidence will not show that Adam, abandoned any consideration for the safety of others. He will tell you that as he approached the intersection, he cleared it visually, cleared it again, no traffic.
The defense claims both Casals and the Browders were driving uphill and could not see each other before the crash. The defense also tried to cast doubt on Lindsay, the sister who was driving, who survived, by implying she may have been on her cell phone while driving. Prosecutors say there has never been any evidence to suggest that was the case. Liz?
Thanks, Matt. Casals, by the way, was fired from APD a couple months after the crash. The trial could last into next week. We will be covering it every day on air and online at KRQE.com. He does face up to 9 years in prison if he's convicted.
Well, now to another high-profile trial continuing today. The man who says the Rio Arriba County Sheriff Tommy Rodella roughed him up during a traffic stop is testifying he feared for his life when that happened. Michael Tafoya was on the stand yesterday talking about a traffic stop with Sheriff Tommy Rodella here back in March. Tafoya right here testified he begged for his life as Sheriff Rodella pulled a gun on him. A lieutenant who got to the scene after that testified that Rodella's son had Tafoya on the ground face down with his knee in his back. Rodella's attorneys say Tafoya was the aggressor on the road and Rodella had to stop him because he was putting people in danger. Now, we will be in the courtroom today. Stick with us at KRQE and our website, KRQE.com, for the very latest. Liz?
Another New Mexico cop could be in a lot of trouble after video surfaces showing him taking a man who was already in handcuffs to the ground. Clovis Police Officer Brent Aguilar is now under criminal investigation. In August, officials say Aguilar had pulled over a woman, then had gotten into it with her boyfriend, Jorge Corona, who Aguilar says would not hand over his ID. Now, Aguilar apparently threw the boyfriend to the ground. Initially, Clovis Police said that they were launching an internal affairs investigation into Officer Aguilar and putting him on desk duty. Well, now the officer could be facing charges. New this morning, Albuquerque Fire Department officials are working to figure out how a huge fire engulfed 3 mobile homes. The fire broke out at a mobile home storage yard on Central and Atrisco Vista in northwest Albuquerque. Around 10:30 last night, fire crews got to the park and found the trailers completely covered in flames. Crews were able to get to the fire and get it under control in about 30 minutes. No one was inside the trailers and no injuries were reported with the firefighters.
The 5:05 now. After days of flooding and having roads soaked, Eddy County here is finally starting to dry out. And as the water goes down, crews are scrambling to figure out what they can reopen and when, and what needs to be fixed and how much that'll cost. About 30 county roads are closed. Some are still flooded. Other roads that are dry and okay could be opened by this morning. The county says roads to the oil fields are a top priority. The county emergency managers say some of the worst damage from the entire storm is at the Callaway and San Jose bridges in Carlsbad. The San Jose bridge just opened this year, reopened rather, because of bad damage from last year's flooding. Water levels are still running high on the Pecos River, and the Bureau of Reclamation says it does not have any plans to release any water through the Brentley Reservoir downstream until things are back to normal. And some good news here. Federal funding for the cleanup could be on the way.
We expect to be able to tap into state money or FEMA money to help us recover from this disaster.
Eddy County still says it has no idea how much the cleanup and repairs will cost at this point. And your photos of the flooding are still coming in. We appreciate them. CJ Beltran took these two down in Ruidoso about 12:30 yesterday. They show some good signs for those affected by the downpours. You can see water levels are on their way down, even though cars are still having to trek through some big puddles. All right, 5:06 now. ISIS is back on the agenda this morning as President Obama is set to take center stage at the United Nations in New York.
The president will chair a special Security Council meeting aimed at stopping foreign fighters from joining groups like ISIS. Airstrikes in Syria on Monday targeted ISIS communication, training, and supply centers. They also targeted another al-Qaeda offshoot terrorist group called KRQE, who officials say are trying to pull off another 9/11 attack. The Pentagon says the group may have been recruiting Westerners. Now, President Obama and the Security Council are expected to adopt a resolution that would require countries to pass a law to try and prevent their citizens from joining such terrorist groups.
The threat of foreign terrorist fighters is very real, and we have to start with the uncomfortable reality that security measures alone will not solve this problem.
Officials say about 15,000 foreign fighters have already flooded the Middle East, joining groups like ISIS. By the way, the Pentagon's assessment is that yesterday's strikes were, quote, very successful.